Hej och välkomna! Ny film, nytt äventyr.
Ja, nu är det äventyr. Nu ska vi inte fiska krabba som vi trodde. Nej. Men vi ska få kolla in krabborna och hur man styckar och sen äta dem.
Ja, och inte bara vilken krabba som helst utan kungskrabba. Så häng med.
So we're going to start now with a bit of a presentation about the king crab. I will tell you a little bit about the anatomy, the history, the industry of the crab, and then we will go inside our Lavo restaurant and you will have a nice portion of king crab to taste. Yes? I'm just going to go down the pier here. Feel free to stay here. It's a bit sketchy. I will go get a live crab for you.
Ja, då ska vi inte fiska den. Sen dra upp den. Nu drar de upp. Det är som när vi håller ölen kall hemma.
Oj, jäklar! Vilka små killar.
Gud vad stora den är.
Man vet inte kung för inget.
Eller hur?
Så, då är den färdigfiskad. Vi får alltså inte fiska. Man kommer hit och äter.
Nej, det var lite tråkigt, men ja.
Ska du också ha den? Ja, jättefint.
Men vi får äta dem.
Ja, men så där kan man ju hålla den också.
Ja, precis. Det är det jag sa. Bak i...
Ja, precis.
Vem blir den första som bidrar i?
Ja, och du har fångat den här själv, eller?
Ja, eller hur? Jag fångade den alldeles själv.
Du tog den själv från föregående hållare.
Sen ska den dö.
Det ligger ett helt nät här nere ju.
Ja.
Det är liksom... Och sen om det är den här vi ska äta har jag ingen aning om, men det blir kul. Eller gott, kanske.
So this crab is a very nice size. If the legs are full of meat, I would say this is enough food for 4 adults. Okay. Yeah. So this is a really good size. The biggest crab that was ever found was around 1.5 meters wide from leg to leg, and it was, I think it was around 12 kilos. This one is probably around 3.5. So you have to picture another 4 times bigger than this. Yeah. Now if you look at the claws of the crab, you can see that there's always 2 different ones. There's a big one and a small one. The easiest way to explain this is knife and fork. So the big one they will use as a knife, they will use it to cut everything they find, and king crabs literally eat anything they can get their claws on. Sea urchins, seashells, sea cucumbers, and if there's not enough food around, they will also eat each other. They are cannibals, so if we keep them in the net too long and they have nothing to eat, they will just start eating each other. Yeah. And then of course the small one is the fork, that's what they will use to bring the food to their mouth. The difference between males and females, let's get to that. If you have to have a guess, what do you think? Who says this is a male?
It doesn't talk.
No? Who says it's a female? No, okay. Well, it's a male. It's a male, yeah. So the biggest difference between male and female is the size. Male crabs are much larger than female crabs. That's also why in Norway we catch 92% males and only 8% females. It's a huge difference.
How do you tell when you catch them?
Of course, you know, when you catch them you wouldn't know if it's a young male or a female. So there is other ways to notice the difference. From the top it's very difficult. If you look at the top of the crab you will see that the males, and this one, it's time to kill it. The males, they are more flat in the back. The females are a bit more round. It's a little bit like us, right? But if you turn around the crab, it becomes very easy to see the difference because the abdomen, the stomach of the crab, for the male crabs, it's a triangle. You can see triangular shape. And if I put a line in the middle, you see that it's perfectly symmetrical. If it would be a female crab, even if the female would be smaller than the male, this body part would still be bigger than the male. And it would be round because that's where she holds her eggs. So if I lift this with the male crab, and he probably doesn't like it when I do that, there's nothing underneath. If this would be a female, it would be full of eggs. Well, you probably know the story that king crab was important, that it doesn't really belong here, it's an invasive species. So the natural habitat of the king crab is anywhere between Alaska and eastern Russia, so the North Pacific Ocean.
But how far south can they live?
Well, they like cold water, you know, so many years ago scientists were scared that the crabs would move so far south and that they would even end up in the Mediterranean. Now we are smart enough to know that's not going to happen because it's just not the right conditions, it's too warm. They prefer temperatures around 3 to 5 degrees. Yeah, so very cold waters. Now, well, like I mentioned it to you, it is an invasive species, so they actually, the first time they tried to bring crabs from eastern Russia, from Kamchatka, to the Murmansk fjord was in the 1930s under the influence of Stalin. Because Stalin had this great idea, if I can bring these crabs to Siberia, to Murmansk, where people are poor, then, well, people can catch it for the food and people can catch it to sell it. So he only saw the advantages. So he chose a couple of scientists and he said, you're responsible to bring crabs from Kamchatka to Murmansk. Now, of course, in the 1930s, they had no idea how to transport these crabs. And by the time, sorry about that, and by the time they came to Murmansk, of course, all the crabs were dead. Yeah. So Stalin was not a very nice guy, so what happened to the scientists? Most likely the same as what happened with the crabs. So then it took more than 30 years before they tried again. In 1961, they started again. This time they did an experiment with the crabs. They put the crabs upside down like this, and only the crabs that were fit and strong enough to flip over by themselves, they were good enough to be shipped to Murmansk. So they took thousands of males, females, and the larvae, the baby crabs as well, released it in the fjord, and they did that many years in a row. This time it was a big success. So the crabs, they started reproducing, there was more and more crabs, but now there was so many crabs after a while that they start migrating as well. Northern coastline of Russia and slowly in the direction of Norway. So in 1977 we found the first king crab in Norway. So if you think about it, from 77 until now, it's not that long. Of course, in 77 with one king crab, well, you're not going to start an industry. So it still took many years until there were so many crabs in Norwegian waters that they could turn it into an industry. In the beginning it was a big disaster for the fishermen because, you know, you felt yourself how sharp they are. If you catch a king crab like this in a fishing net, well, the fishing nets were not made for that. It was destroying the fishing equipment. So it took many years for the fishermen to adapt to all of that, realize the potential of the crab, and now it's a very blooming industry with extremely high prices. I think the price has gone down a little bit in comparison to last year, but the fishermen, when they bring the highest quality of crabs, so good size, healthy male crabs to the factory, they get paid between 450 and 500 kroner per kilo. So you can picture a 5 kilo crab, that's
So
a lot of
that's
money.
including the shell and everything, not
Yes,
just
yeah,
per...
that's live crab.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
When they catch it on crabs, do they only sell the males? So do they throw out
Most
the
of the
females
times the fishermen will throw back the females because they're too small. So it's this part of the body needs to have a certain size. So on board of the fishing vessels they have a measurement. So if they have a doubt, is it big enough? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if they have a doubt, if they think it's too small, they will measure. Too small, they throw it back. Generally with the females, most of the times they are too small and they will throw it back anyway.
Well, what's the southernmost point it has spread to? Is it Bergen or something like that?
Well, I've actually read articles about king crab that appeared on the eastern coast of Scotland.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is places where they have gotten to already. Now in Norway they try to we try to control it as much as we can. Of course it's not easy, but North Cape is actually the limit. So it means that between North Cape and the Russian border, it's a quota regulated area. It means last year, I think numbers have changed a little bit now, but last year it was 850 vessels that can get a license. And if you get a license, your license depends on how much whitefish you catch. So nobody can really say that they are a king crab fisherman, because a king crab license is always an additional license. It's always extra. But like I said, quota regulated area, and the border of that area is here at North Cape. So when the fishermen are done with their quota, they can still catch more king crabs. Now they have to go to the west of North Cape. They can catch more crabs, but the regulations change. Now they have to take everything they catch with them. Doesn't matter if it's too small, if it's female, they have to take everything with them, and what cannot be used for consumption will be destroyed. Because Norway does not want the king crab to move further west and further south, because if the king crab would arrive in the Lofoten Islands, well, that's where the codfish lay their eggs. King crab have almost no natural enemies here in Norway. So if they would arrive in Lofoten Island, they would start eating the eggs of the codfish, and then we have a much bigger problem.
Ja, och det är så här vid Henningsvåg, där får man ju då, på sommaren åker de ut med, där borta har de...
Den där lilla ön där.
Precis, runt hörnet, där i kanten på, typ, där lägger de, har de...
Ribbåtar.
Ja, de åker ut med ribbåtar, men där är fällorna.
Ja.
Och då plockar de upp dem, rensar dem på båten och sen så visar de upp dem. Men,
Vi fick göra vårt här.
Ja, han hade förberett som en bra kock. Så här är då resterna av krabban som han visar hur man styckar och sådär.
Och det var en 3,5-4 kilos krabba,
Ja.
ungefär då.
Och nu ska vi iväg och smaka. Så här i hytterna, stugorna.
Stora lappkåtor.
Precis. Här ska vi vara. Ah, de hänger ihop.
Ja.
Vad mysigt.
Ett radhus. Radhuskåta.
Precis. Så här är det då. Så här får man då skaldjursplatå fast kingkrabbplatå.
Ja. Ja, mysigt.
Så här är då det vi får. Krabba, kungskrabba.
Viggo, kan inte du också se ut som du fotar? Eller? Se ut som du fotar. Nej, fota. Ja. Kolla här. Det här är delikatess.
Och de norrmännen tyckte att det där själva, inte benen och inte klorna som är det godaste, utan det är innandömet i själva kroppen.
Det här.
Ja. För det är lite sötare.
Det är mer mat liksom. Så. Ja. Och vad sa han? Man skulle ta brödet, ta på lite majonnäs och sen skulle man ha kött.
Köttet på och sen några droppar citron.
Ja, det var liksom grejen.
Ja, så vi ska göra en norsk macka, förlåt.
Danskmacka.
Ja, hur gott var det på en skala från 1 till 10?
27.
27.
Ja,
Jag håller faktiskt inte med att du var 35.
Ja, det var så gott.
Så gott. Ja, fräscht, färskt och otroligt smakrikt. Det var perfekt kokt.
Och inget krångel. Det var skaldjur, det var majonnäs och citron och macka.
Lite bröd. Ja, precis. Och man behövde inte ha brödet. Jag gjorde en röra, bara blandade ihop med citron och majonnäs och bara... Det är så gott.
Ja, vi är nöjda.
Ja, så ja. Det var lite utflykten som man kan göra då och äta och ibland då fiska kungskrabba. Så tack för att ni har tittat, så syns vi snart med en ny film. Hej då!